After my husband faked his death, I also drank the fake death potion. He faked his death and eloped with his pregnant mistress, leaving all the mess of the Earl's manor for me to clean up. I also faked my death, took all my dowry to Zhangyan, and married a scholar I picked up as a live-in husband. 10 years later, when he returned to the capital again, the Earl's manor no longer existed, and that scholar turned out to be the deposed crown prince who had been living among commoners. When the deposed crown prince was finally vindicated, I became a member of the imperial family too. After my husband Yi Nansheng fell off a cliff and died, while sorting through his belongings, I discovered he had kept a mistress named Xing Qiyun in Gourd Alley. He treated that woman like a precious treasure. Many things from his private treasury had been sent to her, including an imperially bestowed jade lotus pod ornament. I thought since he was now dead, as his legal wife, I should find a place for that woman. I am a decent person. I thought being born a woman in this world is already difficult enough, and she had no family or relatives. Becoming a mistress perhaps wasn't something she could choose. I didn't plan to sell her off. I thought I'd just retrieve the imperially bestowed item, then give her some money and send her back to her hometown. However, when I arrived at Gourd Alley, I happened to see that mistress coming out of the small courtyard Yi Nansheng had rented, carrying large and small bags, then sneakily getting into an inconspicuous carriage. The woman was stunningly beautiful with a slightly bulging belly. The golden hairpin on her head looked very familiar to me. It was the ruby ruyi hairpin from my dowry, which had suddenly gone missing a few days ago. Yi Nansheng said it was probably one of the maids in the house being light-fingered. He even dismissed 2 sweeping maids who served in the courtyard over this. I never expected he was the one who took it, and even less that it would appear on some mistress's head. What a wonderful husband he is to me. Just as I was about to step forward and seize them, I saw someone in the carriage reach out from behind the curtain, gently helping that mistress. "Qiyun, let me help you." That voice, I couldn't be more familiar with it. It was my husband, Yi Nansheng. Looking at that large hand lifting the curtain, with distinct and fair finger bones. Most importantly, there was a scarred bite mark on the back of the hand. Yi Nansheng had that same wound. I was the one who bit him, because I found out their Earl's manor was all show and no substance, and they had already owed hundreds of thousands of taels in debt before I even married in. He wanted to use my dowry to fill the hole. In a fit of rage, I bit him until he bled profusely. I wanted to teach him a lesson, to let him know I wasn't someone to be trifled with, and that he shouldn't even think about touching my dowry money. At the time, he just said he knew he was wrong, and even coaxed me, saying he would definitely treat me well in the future, asking me to find a way to help him pay off that debt. Now that I think about it, he didn't realize his mistakes. He just found out I wasn't easy to fool. So he simply pulled a cicada shedding its shell trick, using his fake death to dump all the family's mess on me. What a heartless man. "Miss, is that man the young master?" "He is not dead." My personal maid, Jinji, had sharp eyes with just one glance. She also spotted that the man was Yi Nansheng, who should be resting in peace by now. "It is him." I nodded, gesturing for her to keep her voice down while pulling her aside to hide. "Miss, why are you hiding? If you don't rush over now, the young master will elope with that mistress." She didn't understand. She rolled up her sleeves, ready to charge over and demand justice for me. It is better if they elope, easier to deal with. If I rush out now and his fake death fails, he'll still have to be my husband, and I'll still be forced to help their Earl's manor pay off debts. Better to let everyone think he is dead. Without travel papers, he can only hide everywhere as a vagrant. No matter where he goes, no longer that high and mighty heir of the Earl's manor. They schemed against me like this. So I'll just go with the flow and let him know the consequences of eloping. But after they leave, you'll have to live as a widow. That is not fair to you. No matter how Jinji thought about it, she felt I was getting the short end of the stick. Silly girl. Back then, he was the husband, and I was the wife. He was my sky, and I deferred to him. Now, I am in the light. He is in the shadows. I have money, he doesn't. I am superior, he is inferior. Things are getting interesting. I curled my lips. The grief I felt earlier over my husband's death was now completely swept away, entirely by anger. If he can play dirty, so can I. Her logic, chef's kiss. When the maid panicked about the husband eloping, she said, "Good, let him." Why? Because if she exposed him now, he'd still be her husband, and she'd still have to pay his debts. But if everyone thinks he is dead, he becomes a vagrant with no papers. She becomes a widow with freedom, and she can fake her death to escape the whole mess. She turned his betrayal into her liberation strategy. That is not revenge, that is 4D chess. She saw his fake death and raised him a better fake death. Iconic. If he dares to fake his death and elope with his mistress, I can swiftly sever the bond between us as husband and wife in my heart. If I hadn't discovered this early, I am afraid years later, after I helped the Earl's manor pay off its debts, he would return to the manor with his mistress and their children. By then he'd still be the young Earl, and wouldn't it be reasonable to elevate his mistress to equal wife for her hardship in bearing children? Because I have no children, his illegitimate children would rightfully become the future heirs of the Earl's manor. Then he'd find some excuse to divorce me, or seeing that I have no one to rely on, let his illegitimate children seize the shops I painstakingly built and my dowry, then slowly poison me to death. All of this is possible, although I haven't experienced any of that yet. I've already seen the ending that awaits me in the future. Miss makes a good point, so what does Miss plan to do? We can't let this pair of cheating scum off too easily. Gingy nodded. She is my dowry maid, so naturally she stands wholeheartedly on my side, thinking for my sake. Go back to my family home and have my brother find some people to pretend to be mountain bandits. After they've traveled far enough, rob them on the road, strip them of all their valuables, then give those two a good beating. Breaking their arms and legs would be even better. Me, I am especially vindictive. Forget about a husband's betrayal. Even if some random stray dog pissed on my shoes, I'd beat it to death for revenge. They messed with me, they've kicked an iron plate. Since they love eloping so much, love living under fake names, I'll let them have their fill of living incognito and really taste the bitterness of it. They think love is enough to live on, but the truth is you can't go anywhere without money. Of course, I won't push them to a dead end where they'd have no choice but to immediately return to the capital, admit their identities, and continue living their wealthy lives. I'll make them very hungry, but not starving to death. Very miserable, but with just enough hope to keep living, dragging it out, until the Earl's manor is completely finished. Just as I returned to the Earl's manor, debt collectors were already blocking the entrance. Although the Earl's manor hasn't held a funeral yet, news of Yin Nansheng's death is already known to everyone. The old Earl is now cultivating immortality at a Taoist temple outside the city, ignoring worldly affairs. The Countess is bedridden with illness. Now, with Yin Nansheng's death, they're afraid those debts will end up with no one to repay them, turning into bad debts. When Gingy saw this, she helped me off the carriage from afar. We quietly entered the Earl's manor through the back door. Otherwise, we'd definitely have gotten tangled up with them. Even if those debts weren't mine to owe, even if I married into this family without knowing, as long as I am still the young madam of the Earl's manor, I can't stay out of this. Yin Nansheng's scheme was truly vicious. I gave Gingy a small pouch of gold nuggets. Take this to mother-in-law's courtyard and find that personal maid who is from your hometown. Quietly ask around. After Yin Nansheng faked his death, mother-in-law blocked me several times from searching for his body at the bottom of the cliff, saying she didn't want people to see his remains after being eaten by wild beasts. Now thinking about it, perhaps she knew the truth all along. Gingy nodded. That fellow townswoman of hers was extremely greedy, and the Countess was stingy and petty, treating those around her harshly, to get the truth from that maid's mouth. This would be more than enough. An hour later, Gingy returned and whispered in my ear. That maid said the Countess once had someone tamper with the young master's carriage. But that day the young master wasn't in the carriage at all. He was hiding at his mistress's place in Gourd Alley drinking. Afterwards, the Countess slapped her thigh and said that marrying a wealthy merchant's daughter like you into the family was to fill the Earl Manor's deficit. Once the deficit was filled and her son could come back to live well, she'd find someone to ruin your reputation and have you drowned in the pond. After hearing this, I clenched my fists in anger. That old hag, I originally thought she was innocent and wanted to spare her. Since she also wants me dead, don't blame me for being ruthless. As for this old hag, I don't plan to do it myself. She is already terminally ill. As long as I don't help her, she'll definitely die. I heard the gatekeeper report that those debt collectors refused to leave, and with my mother-in-law's instructions, they were making a fuss demanding to see me. I said to him, "Open the gate and take them to see the old madam. Tell them that I am just a woman of the inner chambers, and everything in this household still needs my mother-in-law to make decisions." Mother-in-law wants me to clean up this mess, so I'll just kick the ball back to her. Let them make a scene in front of mother-in-law, preferably until she has a stroke. After the gatekeeper left, I had Jinji and Yunju take inventory of all my dowry. Jinji was confused. Why, miss? You are not planning to use your own dowry to fill the Earl's mansion's deficit, are you? Do they deserve it? I shook my head. No, what I mean is to secretly move these things out as soon as possible. Rent a boat, and we'll go to Jiangyan. My dowry absolutely cannot benefit the Earl's mansion. They're dreaming, Jinji asked. Go to Jiangyan. I can understand you wanting to leave the Earl's mansion, but why not go back to your maiden home? I gently tapped her forehead with my finger. Silly girl, according to the law. I should observe chastity for him for 3 years before I can return home. If I go back to my maiden home now, how will my younger sisters get married in the future? Others will say that the daughters of our family are all heartless and ungrateful people. But if I fake my death, outsiders will only think I was driven to death by the Earl's manor's debts. By then, the ones being cursed and spat upon will be my mother-in-law and the entire Earl's manor. Brilliant. The debt collectors were blocking the gate demanding money. Mother-in-law wanted her to clean up the mess. So what did she do? Sent them straight to mother-in-law's sickbed, where they ransacked the room, took the pretty maids as payment, and nearly scared the old woman to death. She didn't lift a finger, just redirected the chaos. Mother-in-law wanted her dead. She let the creditors do her dirty work. That is not petty, that is efficient. Poetic justice served with a smile. After faking my death, I'll buy a courtyard in Jiangyan, and we'll settle down there, close the doors, and live our own little lives. Wouldn't that be wonderful? The 2 personal maids discussed it together, and both felt this made sense. Who would want to be trapped in this lifeless Earl's manor for a lifetime? Who wouldn't yearn for the freedom of the misty Jiangnan? Hearing me say this, they were all tempted. Yunju was the most eager among them. So when do we leave? Can I start packing now? I smiled. You can start preparing now. Once all my dowry has been transferred out, we'll leave. But remember, don't let any word slip out, and let anyone find out about this. They all nodded. When those debt collectors saw my mother-in-law, they didn't care whether she was on her deathbed. One by one, red-eyed and thick-necked, they reached out demanding money from her. Samanun was working an abacus, the beads nearly poking her face. Madam Earl, your son owed me 3,000 taels of silver before he died. Now that he is gone, your Earl's manor should pay up, right? Simone threw an account book in front of her sick bed. Madam Earl, the 5,000 taels you owed me last year for silk and jewelry. When do you plan to pay? If you don't pay soon, I'll report this to the authorities. Simone kicked over the water basin in front of them. Your Earl's manor still owes our restaurant 7,000 taels. Every time people from your Earl's manor come to eat, they only put it on the tab. It has been 10 years without paying a single coin. Seeing them being so aggressive and not giving her any face, mother-in-law was so angry that her chest heaved violently. I just lost my son. How can you be so aggressive and even barge into my home? Get out, all of you. Halfway through her words, she couldn't help but cover her mouth with a handkerchief, and broke into a violent dry cough, her chest aching with each cough. Seeing this, the 2 personal maids in her room reached out to drive these debt collectors away, but they weren't strong enough, their efforts as weak as shooing flies. Get out, all of you get out. You are disturbing Madam's rest. None of the creditors cared. One of them even grabbed one of the maids and lewdly stroked her cheek. This maid is not bad. She can cover 100 taels. I'll take her. Another one picked up an antique vase from the curio shelf. This vase can also cover the debt. And so the room descended into complete chaos, with the debt collectors taking whatever they could get their hands on. Some even rummaged through the cabinets looking for the maids' indenture contracts, to take them back as debt repayment. By the time I leisurely arrived with the servants from the outer courtyard, mother-in-law's courtyard was already a complete mess. The folding screen had fallen over, not a single ornament was left on the curio shelf. The cabinets had been rummaged through in complete disarray. Not only the gold and silver jewelry, but even her favorite fox fur coat had been taken away in the chaos. Of the 6 maids in her courtyard, only 3 remained now. The 3 prettier ones had already been dragged away to pay off debts. Mother-in-law's face had turned deathly pale from anger, her shoulders heaving as she cried, "These bandits, who let them in?" Then when she saw me, she immediately accused me. "Was it you? Are you deliberately trying to anger this old woman to death? You knew I was ill. Of course I denied it. I wrung my handkerchief, looking completely aggrieved. Mother, you are wronging me. I didn't know they would be so brutal. I just felt sorry for them standing in the cold wind for so long. So I told the gatekeeper to let them in to discuss the debt repayment with you. Mother-in-law. Mother-in-law was so angry she nearly fainted, pointing at me, unable to speak for a long while, before finally saying, "They were pitiful. This old woman was nearly scared to death by them just now." I lowered my head, showing an excellent attitude of admitting my mistake. "Mother, I know I was wrong. I won't do it again. If there is nothing else, this daughter-in-law will take her leave." But mother-in-law called out to stop me, her tone extremely gentle this time. "I heard that when you married into our family, you brought quite a lot of dowry. Could you possibly?" She couldn't bring herself to say it out loud, yet behind the scenes she did shameless things. Hearing this, I sighed and said, "Mother, let me think about it for a few days. I want to make her think I am wavering, so she'll let her guard down, and then my dowry can be secretly moved out of the Earl's residence in batches." Hearing this, my mother-in-law became even more amiable toward me. "Think it over carefully. My son truly married a virtuous daughter-in-law." I nodded and left her courtyard. Over half a month I secretly emptied my private treasury of dowry, moving it out of the residence under the guise of clearing out miscellaneous items, then had people send it to a merchant ship I had already rented. When my mother-in-law impatiently sent someone to ask how my consideration was going, the timing was finally ripe. I cried to my mother-in-law, "Those are all dowry my parents gave me. Why should I use my own dowry to fill the Earl's residence's debts? I don't agree." My mother-in-law got angry and smashed a worthless tea set. "You are my daughter-in-law, you must listen to me on this matter. Your money is my Earl's residence's money." I took the opportunity to cry my way back to my own courtyard, and had people spread this matter around, letting everyone outside know how my mother-in-law coveted her daughter-in-law's dowry, and how she pressured me to fill her marquis residence's debts. When my mother-in-law found out, she summoned me before her and scolded me with her hands on her hips. "You spread this on purpose. You just want to disgrace my Earl's residence. Don't forget you are now part of the Earl's residence too. We share glory and disgrace together." I raised my head with tear-blurred eyes to look at her, trembling. "Mother, must you drive me to death before you are satisfied?" My mother-in-law coldly snorted, threatening me with death. This old woman wasn't scared into growing up. "Go ahead and die if you've got the guts." That is exactly what I was waiting for her to say. Hearing this, I looked heartbroken on the surface, but inside I was overjoyed. "Just wait until she drowns in the people's spit." I cried as I returned to my own courtyard, then locked myself inside my room. That night, I set a fire and burned down the entire courtyard. By the time everyone got up and rushed to put out the fire, the flames had already shot up high, with thick smoke billowing. When my mother-in-law was carried over, only ruins remained. My 4 personal maids and I were all gone. Looking at the ruins, she cried as if her parents had died. "The dowry, all her dowry is gone now." Not only that, after my parents received the news, they immediately rushed to the Earl's mansion to demand an explanation for me. My mother-in-law was in the wrong and couldn't explain clearly, putting her at a disadvantage. My parents knew well that I had faked my death, so they didn't take it to the authorities. They simply cut ties with the Earl's mansion, never to interact again, and made sure everyone knew about this matter. Now that the story of the Earl's wife driving her daughter-in-law to death spread, those creditors came knocking again, demanding the Earl's wife repay the money immediately. She couldn't pay back the money, so those people went to the authorities to file complaints. I imagine things won't end well for her. By the time I received my parents' letter by carrier pigeon, 3 days had already passed, and I had set off by waterway heading to Jiangnan. 10 years later, I was lying on the Luohan bed under the grape trellis to cool off when Jinji, who had already married, rushed over in a hurry. "Miss, something terrible has happened. Please go to the front courtyard quickly. Many soldiers have come and surrounded the master." Upon hearing this, I immediately sat up, and the round fan in my hand fell to the ground due to panic. What is this about? Could it be that my faked death has been discovered? But that is just a family matter of the Earl's residence. Why are they arresting my husband? Jinji shook her head, panting. "I don't know. Miss, should you take the children and slip out through the back door first? Save whoever can be saved." Upon hearing this, I immediately pointed to the direction of the room. "You and Yunzu take Rower and Chenner out through the back door first, and hide at the Yuelai Inn. I'll go to the front to take a look. He is the live-in husband I picked up. He treats me well, so I can't just stand by and watch him die." The two maids immediately did as told upon hearing this, and took the children to hide. Yais, I got married again, 10 years ago, on my way to Jiangnan. I picked up a drowning scholar. The scholar was very good-looking, with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. I was momentarily captivated by his beauty, so out of gratitude, I let him marry into my family. We've been husband and wife for 10 years and have a pair of children. Now my daughter Ruer is 8 years old, and my son Chenner is 5. They both look like my husband, extremely good-looking, like a pair of New Year picture dolls. After tucking some gold, silver, and valuables on my person for emergencies, I hurried to the front courtyard, and sure enough saw my live-in son-in-law surrounded by a group of soldiers. "Tingyun, what is going on? I'll protect you. Whatever the matter is, come at me, I am his wife." After saying that, I instinctively reached out and shielded him behind me. His body had been frail ever since he nearly drowned, and we'd been carefully nursing him with expensive medicinal soups all these years. Only in the past 2 years had his health improved slightly. He mustn't be frightened into illness again. Upon hearing this, Shen Tingyun, who had been hesitating about how to confess his background to me, gave an awkward little cough, then reached out and took my hand. "Wife, you've misunderstood. They're not here to harm me, they're here to escort us back to the capital." I froze in place upon hearing this. "Go back to the capital for what? Aren't you an orphan?" I looked suspiciously at Shen Tingyun, then swept my gaze over those soldiers in official uniforms with solemn expressions. They wore regulation long sabers at their waists, clearly elite troops from the capital. Seeing my face full of confusion, Shen Tingyun sighed, pulled me to a secluded spot nearby, and then dropped to his knees before me with a thud. "Wife, I was wrong. I've been hiding something from you." The scene before me sent my brain into a numb shock, and I panicked along with him, even forgetting to help him up. "What do you mean? You are not an orphan. Don't tell me you have another wife and children in the capital." He hurriedly denied. "No, I don't have another wife and children. I only have you and the kids, and I will never change my heart in the future. Otherwise let me drown again and die a horrible death." Ever since he nearly drowned last time, he has been left with trauma and is extremely afraid of water. I even had people remove all the water vats from the courtyard because of this, so this oath was truly vicious for him. As long as he doesn't have another wife and children, I felt somewhat relieved and reached out to pull him up from the ground. "That is good then. If there is anything else, tell me everything at once." Hearing this, Shen Tingyun pulled me to sit down in the pavilion, and he spoke slowly. "Wife, actually, I lied to you. I am not an ordinary scholar. My father is the current emperor. I was once crowned crown prince, but was demoted to a commoner due to charges of treason. After being demoted, I was originally supposed to be exiled to Lingnan for hard labor, but unexpectedly encountered bandits on the way. To survive, I was forced to jump into the river. I can't swim, so they didn't pursue me relentlessly. For these 10 years, everyone thought I was dead. Later I met you, and we fell in love at first sight. I was afraid you would push me away because of my complicated background, so I hid my identity from you and lived as your husband for 10 years as an orphan. But I never expected that one day, the treason case from back then would be reopened, because the 4th prince let something slip while drunk. Now Father Emperor finally believes that I was framed back then, and didn't actually commit treason. Father Emperor is getting old. He doesn't have many years left to live. He wants to see us before he goes, see our children, and make some arrangements for us, as compensation to me. Are you willing to bring the children and return to the capital with me? So, my live-in husband is actually the former crown prince. Will he inherit the throne in the future? Will he become an emperor with a harem of consorts? Thinking of this, I asked him directly, "Will you become crown prince again? I was married before. His Majesty probably won't agree to let me be your crown princess." He immediately understood what I meant. I had told him about my past before. He knew what I was afraid of. Shen Tingyun held me tightly in his arms. He assured me, "So many years have passed. My second brother has become the crown prince in the palace now. I won't be reinstated. I am the third in line. I'll probably just be an idle prince in the future, and you are my princess. No matter who appears, it won't change the fact that you are my wife. The Earl's manor no longer exists. No matter who digs up the past, I can protect you. Do you want to return to the capital to see your parents?" I thought about it and nodded. Shen Tingyun said, "Then let's bring the children back to the capital together." After returning to the capital, I accompanied Shen Tingyun with the children to meet the emperor. When the emperor saw Shen Tingyun, tears streamed down his aged face. "Third son, I have wronged you, wronged the late empress's spirit in heaven." Shen Tingyun was originally the most virtuous and filial child among all his sons, and he was also the legitimate son born to him and the empress. Yet because of his suspicion, he was cast out among the common folk for a full 10 years, and nearly drowned in a river. When Shen Tingyun faced the emperor, he wasn't as emotional as him, only calling out indifferently, "Imperial father." All the grievances and unwillingness had been worn away over 10 years. His heart was now calm, with no desire for power, nor longing for his imperial father. It seemed like everything from the past had nothing to do with him anymore. He was like an outsider. To him, what mattered most now wasn't the succession struggle, nor his imperial father's favor, but our little family. He no longer cared about affairs of the realm, only wanting to stay with me and the children, and live peaceful days. The emperor wanted to give him a lucrative position, but Shen Tingyun refused. "Imperial father, this son's body is frail now. Being alive is already a blessing. If you truly wish to compensate me, just give me a nominal title." The emperor saw he wasn't throwing a tantrum, and there wasn't a trace of resentment in his eyes. The emperor actually panicked. "You've changed, third son. You weren't like this before. You once had such fighting spirit, wanting to become a beloved crown prince. You also worked on water conservancy, wanting to achieve great things. Are you still blaming your imperial father?" Shen Tingyun's answer was to have the imperial physician take his pulse. The emperor heard with his own ears the physician say that Shen Tingyun's body had just recovered, and he needed to take good care of himself from now on. Otherwise he wouldn't live past 40. The guilt in his heart deepened even more. He had originally planned to use Shen Tingyun's return to counterbalance the current crown prince, but seeing Shen Tingyun's body so weak, he finally gave up on this idea. "Forget it. I won't tire you out anymore. I hereby bestow upon you the title of Prince Cheng, with a fief of 1,000 households, grant you a prince's mansion, and 1,000 taels of gold. From now on, just focus on recuperating." After Shen Tingyun thanked the emperor, he pointed at me and our 2 children and said, "I also ask Father Emperor to grant her the title of Princess Consort Cheng, and to register the 2 children in the Imperial Jade Registry." The emperor had long since sent people to investigate me thoroughly, the daughter of a wealthy merchant in the capital, who had been married before but faked her death to escape, had saved Shen Tingyun's life, and had borne him a pair of children. The emperor originally looked down on me for having been married before, wanting to make me a secondary consort for Shen Tingyun, and bestow a noble lady as his principal consort, but when the words reached his lips, he swallowed them back, because he could see that Shen Tingyun now had eyes only for me and the children, and if he, as the father emperor, played the villain who tears apart lovebirds, he would only push Shen Tingyun further away. The emperor finally sighed. "As you wish." With one sentence from the emperor, I became the officially recognized Princess Consort Cheng, and my 2 children were registered in the Imperial Jade Registry. From now on, I no longer need to hide in the shadows, and can live openly and freely. After our family of 4 thanked the emperor, we were led by the palace servants to offer incense and kowtow before the late empress's memorial tablet. After leaving the palace, since the Prince Cheng's residence hadn't been tidied up yet, we went directly back to my parents' home. At night, my mother pulled me aside for a heart-to-heart talk. She said, "My daughter, you've finally made it through all the hardships. Now that you are Princess Cheng, even if Yi Niancheng comes back alive, he can't do anything to you anymore." I nodded. "This is what they call a blessing in disguise. Prince Cheng has treated me very well all these years." That night, my mother told me many things that happened after I left the capital back then. For example, after I faked my death because the Earl's wife couldn't pay back all that money, the Earl's residence was directly seized by the authorities. All the items inside and the servants who had signed death contracts were taken to pay off the debts. Even so, the money still couldn't be fully repaid. The earl's wife was driven to desperation by those debt collectors and slit her wrists and died. After her death, the emperor sent people to reclaim the earl's residence, and it has now been bestowed upon another official to live in. Mother also mentioned Yi Nansheng. She said that back then, Yi Nansheng and Xing Qiyun were robbed of everything on the road. Yi Nansheng was also beaten half to death by the bandits, and his mistress had her face slashed up. Because of the earl's residence debt issue, the two of them hid in a small town and never dared to return to the capital. They lived a tight life, but that mistress's belly was quite productive. She bore him 2 sons and a daughter. My mother couldn't let it go, so she would occasionally send people to the small town to cause them trouble. Yet whenever they couldn't hold on anymore and wanted to return to the capital, she would give them a little sweetness to keep them trapped there. Hearing this, I said, "Mother, now that my identity can be brought into the open, you can have them return to the capital." I was very much looking forward to seeing their expressions when they found out the earl's manor was long gone. My mother smiled and said, "I'll have someone arrange it right away. From the moment he betrayed you, it has been a fight to the death between us." She was also very much looking forward to Yi Nansheng's fate when he learned the truth. 2 months later, after receiving the false news that the earl's manor had paid off all its debts, Yi Nansheng hurriedly returned to the capital with Xing Qiyun. However happy they were on the journey, that is how anxious they became when they couldn't find the earl's manor. The servant who went to gather information reported back vividly that Yi Nansheng brought his mistress and saw the Vermilion Gate, wanting to barge in, but was stopped by a sharp-eyed servant who drove him out. Only then did he notice that the plaque outside the gate had long been changed to Li Manor. He asked around and only then learned that the earl's manor had long ceased to exist in this world. Now he had nowhere to turn, and the travel money he had was squandered on the way to the capital, leaving his family of 5 to sleep on the streets. That mistress had a huge fight with him over this, saying she only followed him because he was the heir of the earl's manor. Had she known he would amount to nothing now, she would never have borne him so many children. Now she is making a scene about abandoning the children and leaving on her own. Yi Nansheng saw how greedy she was for wealth, and that she wasn't sincere with him. After having a huge fight with her, he actually abandoned her and the child, and ran off to your maiden home to seek an audience with your parents. Hearing this, I stood up and asked Shen Tinyan, who was squatting nearby feeding the parrot. "Your Highness, would you like to come with me to my maiden home and watch the show?" He patted his hands, shaking off the bird food. "Let's go." So I had someone prepare the carriage and went to my maiden home together with him. When the carriage stopped near my maiden home, from far away we could hear someone kneeling in front of the main gate, crying and shouting, "Father-in-law, I know I was wrong, father-in-law. Please, for Yanyang's sake, just lend me some money to get by." My parents naturally wouldn't come out, and the servants blocking the entrance wouldn't even let him barge in. The servant raised his hand to shoo him away. "Our master doesn't have a son-in-law like you who faked his death to escape debts, and then drove his own wife to death." Yi Nansheng refused to leave and even threw dirt on my name. If she hadn't refused to pay off my debts and take care of my mother back then, the earl's manor would definitely still be standing. She ruined my earl's manor to this extent, so it is only right that I ask my father-in-law for some money. He really would give up everything for money. Seeing this, everyone started pointing and gossiping about him. Somebody said, "You irresponsible beast, you drove your wife to death, and you still have the nerve to come ask your father-in-law for money. How shameless can you be?" Some also said, "I heard he hid away these past few years, and had 2 sons and a daughter with his mistress. How does he have the nerve to come back?" Seeing this, I sent someone to call over the earl's manor's former creditors, to block him. Paying back debts is only right and proper. So half a sheikhan later, Yi Nansheng, who failed to borrow money, was taken away by a group of creditors. I heard that later, because he couldn't pay back the money, he was directly sold to a male brothel. The once lavish spending heir of the earl's manor had now become a plaything ridden by thousands, and slept with by tens of thousands. I heard that to pay off his debts sooner, he sold his 2 sons, 1 daughter, and that mistress to repay the debt. The 2 sons became servants in wealthy households, while the daughter and mistress were directly sold to a brothel. The whole family neatly became people of lowly status. They probably won't be able to turn their lives around for the rest of their days. Shen Tinjin commented on this. "Madam, he looks so shifty-eyed and has such poor character. What did you see in him before?" Actually, before Yi Nansheng eloped with Xing Qiyun. During those years when he lived in comfort, His looks were passable. Of course, he couldn't compare to a handsome man like Shen Tinyun. I sighed. I was young and easily fooled back then, couldn't tell humans from ghosts. Shen Tinyun was happy hearing this, he said. But your eyesight improved later. You chose this prince, and this prince will definitely not let you down. Who in the capital doesn't know of Prince Cheng's favor towards me? He never took a concubine his whole life. Usually I managed many affairs in the manor while he was only responsible for being an idle prince. Speaking of which, after he became a prince, the status between us wasn't much different from before. When things came up, I was still the one making decisions, and he listened to me in everything. He still seemed like that live-in son-in-law from before. He seemed to really enjoy the days of being a live-in son-in-law, so much that he had no desire to leave. The following spring, after the old emperor passed away, the new emperor tried multiple times to give him some real power and have him attend morning court every day. But he refused them all, he said. I am used to being idle, so I won't go join the commotion at court. Seeing him like this put the new emperor at ease, and in his delight, he rewarded us with many good things. These little days were quite comfortable. One day, Shen Tinyun and I went to attend a banquet at the Marquise's residence, and ran into Yinan Sheng serving wine to a man at the feast, with her breasts half exposed. He looked up and saw me, so startled that he dropped the wine cup in his hand. Yan Yang, you are not dead. You also faked your death. How dare you? Seems like he was quite surprised. I laughed. That is right. You started it, so I finished it. I am not cleaning up the mess at the Earl's residence for you. Yinan Sheng lunged at me trying to hit me, but was swiftly kicked away by Jin Ji. You are nothing but a plaything serving others now. Our young miss is now Princess Cheng. How could you be someone who can touch her? I was very satisfied with Jin Ji's attitude, and pulled out a golden hairpin from my head to reward her. Well said. Then I held Shen Tinyun and said to him, This is my current husband, the current emperor's own brother, Prince Cheng. I am so glad you faked your death and left me back then. Otherwise, how would I have met Prince Cheng and become Princess Cheng? 10 years later, she is thriving as Princess Cheng with a devoted husband, the former crown prince she picked up, and Yinan Sheng is a brothel worker who sold his mistress and kids to pay debts. When he saw her alive, he lunged at her screaming, You faked your death too. She smiled and said, Thanks for leaving me, otherwise I wouldn't have this amazing life. He literally coughed blood and died on the spot from rage. She killed him with success. That is the most satisfying revenge, not violence. Just winning. Yinan Sheng was so enraged that a mouthful of fresh blood spurted out. Then he collapsed directly to the ground. Jinji kicked him a couple times. Seeing he didn't move, checked his breath, and said, Miss, he is dead, because I became Princess Cheng. Yinan Sheng was actually angered to death. Serves him right. I tossed out a sentence. Throw him in the mass grave outside the city. Then I left the banquet together with Prince Cheng. The grudge between me and Yan Sheng is finally settled. I don't feel the slightest bit of regret for his death, only an immense sense of satisfaction in my heart. Trying to scheme against me, he deserved this ending. Here is what destroys me. Yan Yang married into debt hell, discovered her husband faked his death to elope with his pregnant mistress, and instead of crying or begging, she said bet and faked her death too. But she didn't just escape, she strategized. She had her brother's men rob the eloping couple and beat them up, redirected debt collectors to torture her evil mother-in-law to death, faked her death so spectacularly, the whole capital blamed the Earl's manor, took all her dowry to Jiangnan, and married a drowning scholar. That scholar turned out to be the deposed crown prince 10 years later. She is Princess Cheng. He is reinstated. They have 2 kids meanwhile. Yinan Sheng spent 10 years hiding in poverty with his mistress, returned to find the Earl's manor gone, got sold to a male brothel, sold his kids and mistress to pay debts, then literally died of rage when he saw her thriving. The genius. She didn't need elaborate revenge. She just let him destroy himself while she built a better life. His fake death gave her freedom. Her fake death gave her a prince. He thought he was escaping responsibility. He was actually setting her free. The most satisfying part when he accused her of faking death. She didn't deny it. She thanked him for leaving because it led her to true love. He coughed blood and died. She didn't kill him, his own jealousy and regret did. That is not revenge, that is karma with a smile. Sometimes the best response to betrayal isn't confrontation, It is disappearing so completely that when you reappear, you are untouchable and they're destroyed.